What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. Y'all already know what we're here to talk about. We got to talk about them Florida State Seminoles. How about them Noles, though? They made history tonight on this wonderful October Friday, losing to Duke for the first time ever in program history. And this was a really gross loss. And every time you watch Florida State after the end of every game, you always leave with more questions than you have answers. Because every time you watch this team play and they lose, you keep asking yourself, how bad is this thing going to get? And it gets worse every single weekend. Tonight was probably the ugliest loss that FSU had this year. And although it wasn't a blowout loss, they did, play pretty hard. The fact that Brock Glenn, who you thought was going to be able to give you better quarterback play than DJU, because remember, all of us thought that DJU was the main problem holding back Florida State's offense. Now, we knew that there were more issues with this team than just DJU, but at least with him being out, you would think that whoever's behind him could give Florida State better quarterback play, because with how bad DJU was looking this year, you thought you couldn't get no worse at QB. Well, Brock Glenn said, hold my beer, because this dude in the first half of this game, on 3 straight plays, three consecutive drives, had 3 turnovers. Florida State is the only school in the FBS this year to allow themselves to commit 3 straight turnovers on 3 consecutive plays. And I think that sequence perfectly encapsulates what Florida State football has been this year. This team doesn't look well coached. They don't look disciplined. And to be honest, with the way they were playing on offense, you would have thought that they were intentionally trying to throw this game and allow Duke to win it. And they made a quarterback change. So they put in this true freshman QB named Luke Kromenhoek. Definitely a top 5 football name of all time. And I didn't really think the brother looked that bad. As a matter of fact, the dude had 1 touchdown that he threw that ended up getting dropped. And then he had another big time throw later on in the game that also got dropped. So even when the quarterback can actually hit a wide receiver when they're open, these receivers are scared to catch the ball. It was 1 drop that one dude had that he just made because he was scared to take the big hit. This team has no heart, no toughness, no physicality, no soul. This is a soulless Florida State football team that we are watching this year. And I don't even know how you FSU fans continue to watch these games. At this point, just do your mental health a favor and don't watch another snap of FSU football again, because things probably could get a lot worse than what they already are. JT, we already are 1-6. We got to win our last 5 games to get in to at least a bowl game. What do you mean this is, potentially going to get worse? Well, you could lose to Charleston Southern, because I want y'all to be honest with me right now. With how bad Florida State has looked this year, do you really think they could beat anybody? I mean, seriously, if they were to play Charleston Southern right now, I would take Charleston Southern with the points if they're an underdog. Because Florida State's offense not only may be the worst offense in all of FBS, but probably the worst offense in all of college football, from D3, NAIA, Division II, FCS. And I'm not trying to be funny. I'm being dead serious. The offensive line can't block nobody. The receivers can't catch. Your quarterbacks are struggling to not throw the football to the other team. Brock Glenn was more accurate throwing it to Duke than he was throwing it to his own receivers. I mean, every time I watch Florida State play, I'm just flabbergasted at how bad they continue to look. It's like you think after how they looked last week, coming off a bye week, that they will look better in this game. You're coming off a bye. You got pretty much 2 weeks to prepare, and you still look this bad? It's like anytime Florida State does something right, the next play they do something wrong. So early in the first half, right, Florida State gets a big fake punt. Okay, it was fourth down. They go for the fake punt. Not only do they get the first down, but they get a lot of yards with it. It puts them in scoring range. Then they get a 17-yard run after that. And then you will look at that game at that moment and you will say, okay, Florida State got a little bit of momentum. Let's see how they're going to finish this drive. All they do is end up being put in a 3rd and 14 situation. Malik Benson has the first down and he ends up dropping it. And then they go for the field goal. And of course, that ends up being a disaster. And it ends up getting blocked by Duke. It's like anytime something goes right for Florida State, 4 things after it go wrong. I just have never seen the program be as high as what the Seminoles were at the end of last season. Even with the loss to Georgia in that bowl game, it still was a very great season. But for them to follow that up with this, I mean, if you're Florida State right now, you got to consider buying out Mike Norvell. Even though you just gave this dude a fresh extension early in the year to keep him from going to Bama, the boosters, the alumni, the collective, everybody has to come together and get that buyout money ready. It's going to hurt to have to take this big of a loss financially, firing Mike Norvell. And I was defending this dude a few weeks ago. I was saying that Florida State shouldn't fire Mike Norvell and he wasn't going to go anywhere. But I didn't think that you would be in a situation where you realistically could go 2-10 this year. That's unacceptable. And I really don't think things are going to get better because with how bad your season has went, your recruiting has taken a ginormous hit as well. The last time I checked the recruiting rankings, Florida State wasn't even in the top 25 anymore. That's disturbing. And with how bad you look this season, this is one of those years that could set your program back 3 years, because now it's kind of like you're starting over again. You go from being undefeated in the regular season, winning the ACC, trending upwards as a program. Everybody is starting to believe that Florida State is back. They're going to be a perennial college football playoff contender, just to look like they're one of the worst teams in all of college football. I don't even know how many G5 teams right now you could beat. And if you're a recruit, you know, why would you want to play for this? Because his coaching staff doesn't look like they can develop you. And it looks like when you're going to Florida State, you're just playing to lose. And that's how these players look on the field. They're not playing to win. They're playing to lose because a lot of the drops, the dumb penalties, the dumb decision making is losing football. And I really didn't expect Florida State to be this bad. I promise you. I told you guys before the season that Florida State was the most overrated team coming into this year. I told y'all they weren't going to be a playoff contender. I told y'all that at best they probably would be a 9-win team. But I never expected Florida State to be 1-6 right now. Their season is pretty much all but over because you know who they play next week? Ooh, they playing them Hurricanes. Ooh, they playing Cam Ward. They got to go up against Mario Cristobal. Ooh, not only is your season on the line against Miami, but you're playing for pride. You're playing for respect against Miami. If you allow Miami to just roll you 70-0, 70-3, Mike Norvell has to get fired. Because that means that everything that he has done the first couple of years, you just got to ignore it at this point. We could be looking at Gene Chizik 2.0. For those of you guys who are too young to know who Gene Chizik is, go Google Gene Chizik. He was the head coach of Auburn in 2010 when they won the national championship with Cam Newton. And a year after that, they completely fell off the map. You know, Mike Norvell is in that conversation with the Ed Orgerons, the Gene Chiziks. Maybe last year was just lightning in the bottle. And that program truly was carried by Jordan Travis and all of the other players that they brought in from the portal in the past. Because right now, this Florida State team, They don't even look like they will beat a Division II team right now. This just looks like a broken, soulless football team right now. And it's really disappointing to see. Even though I'm a Miami Hurricane fan, I always want to see Florida State at their best because I'm not going to be satisfied with Miami blowing you out next week because, I mean, what's the point of bragging about kicking somebody when they're already down? All we're doing now is just stomping all over your dead body because that's what your season is. Dead. No soul. No heart. I just get so shocked at how low Florida State continues to go every single week when I watch them. You keep telling yourself next week it can't get no worse than what happened the following week. And it does. I mean, this is the first time ever in the history of your program that you have lost to Duke. Not in basketball, people, football. And at this point, you really should be entertaining hiring Deion Sanders to replace Mike Norvell. You should, because, I mean, Deion can't do any worse than what Mike Norvell's doing right now. Just saying. But, wow. It's just really shocking to see just how bad Florida continues to look, or Florida State continues to look week after week this year. Gross loss tonight to Duke.